Mic, please. What have you muted there? Yeah. Sorry, guys, there was a bit of feedback on the side. So welcome everybody. Perhaps I can start by welcoming everybody in the room. How's everyone doing? Good, good. Yeah, so we doing a session on like ideation, invention, and just basically how we can come up with like ideas to kickstart a business. And yeah, it's quite interesting process. I'll go through a bunch of like different techniques that you can look at. And then we'll focus particularly today on design thinking, which I think is one of the most robust ways to ideate in the entrepreneurial process, but not only in the entrepreneurial process, but in various disciplines as well. Yeah, so I will carry on and yeah, we'll carry on with the presentation. Anybody familiar with ideation? What do you think it might be? Anybody in the room? Or anybody online? Yeah. Good.
Good morning. I think it has to do with coming up with ideas. Coming up with ideas. Simplify. Coming up with ideas.
Nice. Anybody else? Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts? Can you hear me now? I think yeah, I think they can hear me now. All right, so I was just asking everybody in the room if who would be inspired by which entrepreneurs inspires them the most. So we're just going around. Which entrepreneur you were about to say something? Yeah, you can go ahead. You can speak.
Okay. It's mostly guys who develop properties. So like there's this one, but I like to look local first instead of international, because then I relate most to how they've managed to go to their chain. So any guy who's like built it from within Africa instead of property chain. That's my inspiration.
Sorry, guys, we're having technical issues here. Okay. Okay, we are on the same slide. Okay. So now we won't have any more technical issues. Sorry about that. So yeah, thanks for your insight. Any other thoughts, perhaps? See, everybody can hear me now, right? We're good. Any entrepreneurs you think have solved something pretty cool in South Africa or in Africa? Yeah.
But the creator of Women in Law, I think she had a great idea because she used to work for corporate South Africa in Sandton, but she didn't enjoy her time there, so she started blogging about it. 2 years later, she quit her job. She became an influencer, which I think is an entrepreneur. She hosts annual Women in Law conferences that actually do very well.
Nice. Nice. Anything you've seen that's innovative on campus, perhaps? Yeah.
The guy that made the timetable.
Timetable.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a smart one, right? Like, so that everything doesn't clash. It's actually interesting. We'll carry on. So, like, obviously, a lot of businesses, some of them are at the pulse of how, of creativity, where some businesses are more like still kind of offering the same service, but maybe offer a different price. But I want us to try and think beyond that, and I'm going to share a few techniques that will help us to think beyond that. And you'll realize there's a few common ones. Scamper is one of the common ones, and design thinking. But today we'll focus on design thinking. But let's just scan through some of the other techniques quickly. So yes, so we've got needs analysis, brainstorming, brain writing. Anybody familiar with any of these on the screen? No. Yeah. Okay. That's actually true. Anybody online who is familiar with any of these techniques on the screen? Okay, we'll carry on. Sure. So let's just scan through this quickly. Needs analysis, right? So we're basically looking at trying to identify gaps. We're trying to look at the root cause of a problem, and that's primarily, I think all of us do needs analysis subconsciously without realizing it on a day-to-day basis. When you're, I guess if you're in res and you're like out of sugar, then you've basically realized that I must go and get more sugar. Like we're doing that just naturally as human beings. Brainstorming, I'm sure you've done a lot of this in class. Anybody wants to give us an idea what brainstorming is? Perhaps you can give it a crack. You want to guess? Yeah. So basically brainstorming, we get like a lot of people to come together and each person writes down on a piece of paper and then you pass it on to the next person and you build upon that idea. And then this continues until everybody's contributed, ensuring that obviously if there are any introverts in a room, then everybody has a say, So that's brainstorming. And has anybody ever heard of the sorry, that's brain writing, sorry. And then brainstorming is basically when all of us come together and we sort of like discuss a concept. And then has anyone ever seen the worst idea technique? Have you ever come across that? Like you can see on the screen, like that's a horrible idea, right? But the thinking around the worst idea technique is that it forces people, individuals, or companies to think about the worst experience a customer can ever have at their store, or the worst experience one can have with the service. So, for example, we had quite a horrible experience earlier with the technicalities here in the room, for example, like with the echo, with the feedback, and so on. So, if you're thinking about a problem, you could think about what is the worst possible thing that can happen. So for the plane, maybe the worst thing that can happen is a crash. With lecturers, I think the worst thing that can happen is that the whole class fails or something like that. And then you start thinking, how do we prevent that from happening? So you work from the back, moving forward. And then looking at design thinking, anybody wants to give it a crack what design thinking might incorporate? Yeah.
I think I found it out in the video.
Sure.
It has to do with several process, which is emphasizing you simulating yourself in your supposed customer situation. So what do you need? Then you come up with ideas that you stomach. You come up with ideas that can meet the problem, that's possible solutions. Then you now begin to prototype. So we have a soft prototype and we have hard prototype. So in soft prototype, we just need to use a bit of sketches and
Yeah.
that. Now prototype we can design the, it's a project or something. Then we test it in the market and we take it out to know what customers feel about the product. So it's a whole process around time.
Absolutely, absolutely, very smart. And are there any engineers online or here in the room? Anybody studying engineering? Yeah. This is quite big in engineering because you have to create something. When you're solving a problem, you have to kind of create a prototype. And you say what? You agree? Yeah. So, but it also is cross-cutting in different disciplines. So people use this approach to kind of come up with solutions. Yeah, and software developers. Yeah, software developers also. Paper prototype. Interesting.
Give it to everyone to criticize it.
Yeah.
And then based on everything that the spot, then we redesign and give it out again, and then produce.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We use that and also wireframes. So it's either one of those. The wireframes is like a software that mimics what the actual product will look like. They also criticize that and then they give it back to us. We look at it and we design, and if everyone's happy, then we produce it and everyone.
Wonderful. And also, I like the fact that you mentioned that, there's like feedback. There's a lot of feedback. So with design thinking, you want to, it's a big part of it is the emotional side of things. So there's somebody once said to get a good idea, you need a lot of ideas. This person's the only person who in history to have won 2 individual Nobel Peace Prizes. And this was Linus Pauling. And I like that quote because a lot of the times you'll find like in corporate or in companies, when they have like design sessions or when they're having like strategic sessions, there might be only like very few ideas that they come up with in their business to solve certain problems. But in essence, based on that quote, it suggests that there's a correlation between the number of ideas that you come up with and the best solution. So you got to encourage people to come up with a lot of volume of ideas, and then from there on you sort of narrow it down, which helps. And a big part of empathy is like emotion. Like when you observe people, what do you feel? Have you seen like kids going to grade 1 and they got this big bags and they can barely like walk? Like you feel a sense of emotion for them, right? Or if you're on around Hatfield and you see people that are asking for food, there's a feeling that comes with it, right? So when you're thinking about solving a problem, you start thinking about, how do I put myself in their shoes and how do I feel what they're feeling and what are the emotions associated with their problems? There was a company that was working on a treadmill. I don't know if anyone has used a treadmill in the gym before. Basically, when you're running, sometimes the company observed that people were fearful when they're on the treadmill, and there was too many things going on, and the emotion they picked up was fear. And then they went on to do design thinking and to look at how best they can, define what the problem was. And then they wrote a little problem statement to say, well, we see that our users are currently experiencing a lot of fear when they're using the treadmill. So then they went on to Ideate and they came up with a prototype, and then they sort of like tested the prototype, and then they put, in their study, in the test, they went to a hotel and they put the common treadmill that was being used at the time and what they designed. And they basically used a study to determine how many hotel guests that use the gym are actually picking their prototype over the old treadmill. And they picked up just by observation, without asking anybody a question, just to see what people pick. And then they also studied the body language of the people who were using the treadmill to see how relaxed they looked. And that's how they went about creating that innovation. Brought them like 20% increase in sales for about 2 years consecutively, just because somebody sort of like observed people felt what they felt and then thought, hey, there's a lot of fear associated with using this machine. So how can you create a bit of ease and confidence in using the machine? And then, went on to create something that was pretty good. So that's something to think about. Empathy, emotion, emotion. Define what the problem is. When you define what the problem is, create something. You create it, test it. When you test it, go back through the loop, and you'll probably come up with something. So that's just that example. Any questions so far in the room or online? You can just unmute and speak. Yeah, we've got a question. Okay, so the treadmill, the difference was that I think there was just a lot going on in front of the treadmill, and people, in terms of the buttons, because you can increase your pace and so on. They try to change those buttons to be easily accessible, and they put a little rail on the front so that people can feel like they've got a place to like lean on or whatever. So it just created a safe environment for the person who was running. And obviously they asked the users what it felt like and what was making them feel as though they're uncomfortable when they're running. Because you have runners you have people that are exercising at with different needs. Some people are just new at running, some people have been used to it. So for the first time user, how comfortable can they be if it's their first time? So all of that informed a few changes to their design. I wish I had photos I would have shown you, but I didn't add them here. Any other questions? All good. So scamper technique is a interesting one. It's basically like when you look at a product or if you look at a service, right? Let's take student registration, for example. Back then, before there was online registration, people used to physically line up, like what the first years did at LC, because you have to submit a contract or something like that. But back then, before those online facilities, a lot of people just used to actually line up with all these documents and try and get through registration. Long queues, frustration. Yeah, I guess it slowed down the process. But then obviously there's now online registrations. You don't really need to be on campus to do that. So that, for example, is an example of something where you can observe a service offering or a product. And then if you're going to apply the scamper approach, you're basically going to think of like, what can you replace? So they replace the physical components with online, and that made the process a lot smoother. If you look at what can you combine, right? So we might move online, but we can't essentially, there's certain documents that we need physical copies of. So if you need a contract, then you can still submit the contract physically when you're on campus, but it doesn't sort of like limit you from starting the registration process. So you got, a bit of a combination. And then what can we adapt? Like how do we adjust for different audiences, right? So interesting thing is like the Mastercard Foundation is quite big on inclusion, and also the university is also quite inclusive. Like if you look on campus, you see there's trails for students who are blind students. Have you ever seen any blind students on campus with a dog or with a stick? So it's like, how do we adapt our environment to make sure that we can incorporate and support more people? So if you're thinking about stuff, you can also just think about what can we adapt to what's already there, and then modify, like what can we change, like what can we change in a particular offering. I think back then you had companies like, I can't remember the name of the company, but they were literally specializing on having cameras, like having a whole camera that you carry everywhere you go to events. But then now they've literally changed things in the way that you can have a phone that carries a good camera, which is just as good as a big camera that you would carry back then, but also captures high quality images, right? So that means that, what can we change? So basically companies that have that are specializing in mobile phones and mobile devices will say, oh, well, look, let's make sure we can get same high quality 4K quality camera for videos and high definition images on a phone that you can keep in your pocket, so you don't have to carry a whole device with you wherever you go. Yeah, and then if we look at the same product, what can we use it? Can we use it for a different purpose? So those are some things to think about. What can we eliminate? What can we remove? Right. I think back then phones were, for example, quite they were quite big, very heavy, and then convenience. Now it's lighter. Now you can put your phone in your pocket anyway, really. You can carry it around. And what can can we flip in the process? Like, so those are some of the things to think about. Just a few nudges for you to think about in terms of like Scamper technique, just how you can apply it. And then reverse thinking is the next one, which is basically backward thinking is basically looking at how you can solve problems with the end in mind. So you start with the outcome and then you start thinking, how can we achieve it? Like your goal here has to be to get your qualification. Maybe you want to get your PhD or your master's. Then your goals are like, okay, cool. Then you can look at an example of a thesis of a previous PhD or a master's submission of a dissertation. And then you start working back like, okay, cool. But to get here, I need to start with just, maybe a pager of like what my study is going to be about, and then build from there into the different chapters. So that's an example of how you can apply reverse thinking, starting with the end in mind and then working back to what you need to do to create the end in mind. Are we still on the same page? You guys understand? You don't look confused? Okay. And then, yeah, sure. There's a question. Yeah, you could. I mean, you could think about, I think now you're using a scenario, right, of like your life, personal life.
Like, yeah, because when you said, okay, you want to get a PhD, then in the meantime, what are your daily activities or your semester activities? Like, that's just the small goals that you have to achieve in order to fulfill the bigger part of it that you understand.
Yeah, so also, but like reverse thinking is a big part of it, is like, how do we eliminate the barriers that I could experience? So I think in your case, maybe you could, if you're looking at your semester, you could think about how you can work more effectively. For example, time management could be a big factor, so that you realize, okay, for me to do this, I must actually manage my time so that I can get to all these classes. But if I'm not managing my time, I won't be able to get to all my classes and attend in the semester. So you just look at possible hurdles you can experience in the journey, and then you try and mitigate those hurdles because they do come up. And then just questioning assumptions. Basically, it's just about challenging beliefs. Why do people want to buy food in the early hours of the morning? You could come up with various answers to that. But then if, for example, if you're not a person that parties, you would not think about the need for people to have a 24-hour fast food takeout, because you're like, at that time you're thinking is people are sleeping. So you're thinking from like between 10 and like in the morning, people are sleeping. So there's no point of opening a restaurant in those hours. But then if you maybe test that assumption and you meet somebody who actually goes out, they'll be like, hey, no, like there's a lot of people that are out at that time, they are hungry, who want to get some food or whatever. But you would never think about that if you don't test that assumption that you have, right? So I think your lecturers will speak highly on testing assumptions that you have if you're doing research or whatever, like assumption in our thinking. We carry these like stereotypes and so on. So it's about challenging those things. And then hopefully you will come up with a cool solution. There's some people that have some assumptions about people that are not true. So when you test them, then you sort of expose them. And when you do that, you allow yourself to think differently about a problem. So that's just a little technique. So body storming is basically participants act out scenarios related to their ideas or problems, and this physical engagement fosters a bit of empathy and can also lead to unexpected insights about user experiences. So if you're to role play, perhaps you got a new product, maybe it's a bus, and you kind of role play people getting onto that bus, and then you see, oh, the step is so high, you know what I mean? Then the designers can then work back and change that so that it's accommodating for a lot of people. Why? Because you might find that the designers are pretty tall, and then when designing, for them it made a lot of sense and they were comfortable, but then there's other shorter people trying to get on the bus and they can't actually get on the bus comfortably. So I think scenario playing allows you to sort of like see how other people experience your product or your offering. Anybody use mind maps to study? Yeah, quite a couple of people. So mind maps just helps you to connect the dots, just putting ideas around and brainstorming from there, and then hopefully you can sort of like come up with that, and it just creates a visual picture of different ideas. and then with those ideas, hopefully you can come up with something there. It's actually a cool study technique as well for some people. Yeah, so we'll look at these other ones are not really necessary. It's just crazy 8. It's basically dividing a piece of paper into 8 sections and then just kind of drawing different ideas on that paper, and then people criticize that piece of paper. But yeah, it's just applies for different people. Different people like different things, so maybe that's something that you might like. I think somebody mentioned like prototypes, and they have to do like drawings earlier. So some of these things are somewhat similar. So are we all on the same page around some of these techniques? I know in this session we're highly interested in design thinking, but I wanted to just run through various other ones. Any questions online? Perhaps somebody who might want to ask a question. Okay, cool. Take it. There's nobody. We'll carry on. So the reason I structured it like this is that it's cool to come up with ideas, and it's cool to come up with to identify problems and to come up with solutions. But it's also very important to make sure that the solution you come up with is feasible, and also viable. So we'll look at that. Does anybody want to have a guess at what feasibility stands for or what it means? Yeah. Profitable. Okay, that's a good point. Just hold on to that thought. Profitable. Good point. And yourself? Is it practical? Yeah. Is it practical? Any other thoughts? Is it accessible? Okay. Is it doable?
Sent in the chat. I think the person is recording.
Okay, cool. Adaptable. Okay. Can you adapt it in a different environment? Any other thoughts? Does it make sense? Yeah. Comment here on the chat. Is it doable? Yeah. Any other thoughts? Was it also realistic? No. I think last week we touched a little bit on SMART. No, is it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely as well? Those things are quite important. All right, cool. We'll look at this quickly. So feasibility is basically, when we're looking at something or a undertaking or a project, we're looking at its merits, right? We're looking at does it provide an independent assessment that allows us to understand if what we want to do is firstly something that's technically, in the sense that if you're an engineer and you're looking at the technical components of your product, are you looking at it in a realistic way? And then if you're looking at that product, are you looking at it economically? Is it something that makes sense? Cash flow wise, is it going to cost you 5 rand, or is it going to cost you 5,000 rand, or 5 million rand, or 5 billion rand? So it's like looking at the economics of the project. And then legally, is it something that's legal? Is it something that we can actually pursue? It's a great idea, but it's not something that's legal. I've heard so many people saying that one of the ways to fight drug abuse is to legalize drugs, so that when people have access to it, then they don't have to. There's a less of an appeal for people to sell it underground and make money from it. And many people say, "Oh, that is a crazy idea," of course, because it's illegal to do that, right? You can't legalize drugs. And then look, environmentally speaking, what you're trying to create, is it something that is environmentally friendly? What's the impact on the environment? So those are some of the things to think about. And also when we're speaking about feasibility and viability, we also think about the triple bottom line. Does anyone know what the triple bottom line is? No. So triple bottom line is basically you're looking at one, environment. What's the impact of this on the environment? 2, you're looking at people. What's the impact of this on people? And then 3, which is viability really, is profits, right? Cash flow. So can you actually sustain your initiative over time, firstly? And then secondly, profitability wise, can you actually make money off that? Because at the end of the day, we are trying to skill you to be able to run businesses that are profitable, not just to be out here and having great ideas, but then that don't make any money. So I think we're more interested in understanding how we can all then pursue something that's profitable. So this helps to make sure that your ideas, whilst they might be great and many, are they also feasible and viable? I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, that's probably what I would say. You know, is it something that's doable, and then viability, you know, is it something that's profitable, and over time, is it something that's sustainable? Cool. Any questions? Yeah. So he's asking, like, at first if it's not profitable, okay, but then that's good. That's a good point. So you might find that somebody like, let me use, I want to use him as an example, but let's look at space, like let's look at the space, people that are interested in space. Couldn't think of a better example, but right now, I don't think, you know, when you're looking at like space travel, it's like only appealing to a few people who are super wealthy. And then there's a lot of research going into trying to get, you know, understanding on how we can have human life on different planets and so on. I don't think it's something that's profitable right now, you know, but I think if somebody cracks it, it's like maybe it's going to be profitable in the future. The fact that people are pursuing that means that they have probably calculated that it might be profitable in the long term. So you might run, I think that's when the break-even analysis comes in. We'll look into that a little bit later, where with a business, you're looking at the relationship between time and income, right? And when do you get to the point where your income matches your expenses, right? So I guess, yeah, it's something to think about. So it's a good point. So sometimes it might not be profitable now, but it can be profitable tomorrow in the future.
So my question is building upon
Yeah.
this. So how long should the losses go on for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So typically with businesses, people want to, theoretically speaking, or people, when companies typically trajectory to see when they're going to break even. But typically, if the business survives the 3 and 5 year period, then it's typically a very viable business, according to some research. But at the end of the day, like that depends on you as an entrepreneur. Like how long are you willing to wait, and how it also depends on your business model. So, for example, if you're selling like, let me use a very simple example. If you're selling like 10 suites, you know, and for you to start making profit, you should have sold at least 6 and more. So if it takes you 6 days to sell 6 suites, then that means that it's going to take you 6 days. But if you plan it in a way that you want to sell your 6 suites in 6 minutes, you've broken even in 6 minutes. So it depends on you as an entrepreneur and your business model. It's very hard to answer that. But I think the principle is like the break-even point. Ideally, if it comes, the sooner you reach the break-even point, the better. So the sooner you can make money that covers all your expenses, then the better.
I was expecting maybe in a year, but now you mentioned 3.
No, that's like typical, but it's realistic though, you know. It's very realistic. It also depends on your project.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm also interested in real estate.
Real estate. Yeah.
And in real estate, it's a long-term investment.
Yes.
So if, let's say, you buy a house and you wanted to generate, it will take time because you still need to pay off that mortgage.
Yeah.
And before you start making money to buy other apartments. So it depends, like you said, on when do you foresee making money. So some businesses, they can boom now, and then some it takes long-term investment to see your profit.
Interesting. You mentioned real estate. So when you talk about real estate, you also start talking about barriers to entry or barriers into the market. How many of us can buy a house?
Oh.
Right now, you can afford to buy a house. So if a house is $1 million, you can pay $1 million.
But I'm gonna be smart about it. I can't pay like for my project. We're gonna use systems of money.
Okay, explain that.
So you go to the bank and then you qualify for a mortgage.
Yeah.
And they give you the money.
Okay.
And then once you get it, then They're gonna give you the house loan.
Okay.
And you get the house loan, then you use it to pay over time. But then you're gonna be smart about it because you know you can't pay it, then you rent it out.
Yeah.
So in terms of profit viability, then you wanna look at, let's say, 20 years.
Yeah.
That's when you start generating the profit. Over time, it's just paying.
Yeah. So he makes a great point around if you don't have the money now, you can borrow the money from the bank. But with that itself, to borrow money from the bank, he's talking about a mortgage. There's a lot of requirements they need from you that they pose as barriers to entry as well. So in essence, it means that the playing field is not fair because you must have a certain level of the bank to give you money, they must assess your risk level. Do you have a permanent job? How much you earn? Can you afford this? Okay, cool. We'll give you that like mortgage. So basically at the core of it, it's like there are barriers to entry in most industries, and it's good for you to be aware of those barriers to entry. Because like you said, real estate is great, but then you might actually only start buying your first property when you've been working for some time and you've saved some money or whatever, practically speaking. But I do understand, and I'm glad that you're all thinking about some of those things. So any questions, perhaps online as well, if there are any thoughts?
Sorry, you mentioned the three bottom line.
Yeah, the triple bottom line, yes. Is it?
Slides.
No, it's not. It just came
You
up.
mentioned-
So yeah, there was a question on the triple bottom line, what it is. So the triple bottom line is, so think about it like this. Yeah, Kamvili, you can go ahead. I think she wants to say something.
Hi Lennox. I was just wondering, there's a feedback. But like how and to what extent can you test viability and feasibility prior to entering whatever venture you're planning on?
That's a good question. So she's asking how can you test your feasibility and viability analysis? So yeah, it's quite difficult because the proof is in the pudding. Like you have to actually test, and that's why sometimes you'll find in business we talk about the MVP, so the minimum viable product. So if you're creating maybe you can do like a prototype. That's why the prototypes are important, to create a prototype, because it gives you a sense of like what you can sort of expect at a very low cost without you having spent so much money. Because at the end of the day in business, you want to learn as much as you can. You want to get those lessons. I think there's some people who call it 360 feedback. So you want to get as much feedback so that you cut your costs, in the sense that if you interview people, you do your research, then the people will tell you what will work and what they were like, as opposed to you launching something and creating independently and then take it to the market and hope that people can relate with it and connect with your product or service. Yeah, it's hard because I'll give you an example, a personal example. So a couple of years ago, we were trying to start we started an app. The long story short of it is that this app that we designed, my friend and I designed an app where we're trying to give people access to gym facilities on a time basis as opposed to like contract basis. So if you have the app, then you can access the gym. If you go there for 20 minutes, then you pay for 20 minutes. If you go there for an hour, then you pay for an hour. Because what we notice is a lot of people have a contract that is so binding, and if they happen not to be in that, maybe they're sick for a month and they're not able to gym, but they still have to pay for their membership. It's like similar to medical aid. If you not sick the whole year, you still pay for your medical aid, right? But like it's like we're trying to see how we can rethink that. Can we maybe get people paying for what they're using, just paying for consumption, as opposed to just kind of paying in this model where you just pay this amount and you don't actually use it. So it's like if you have a contract line, a mobile line, you can make calls the whole month, or you can make one call, but you still pay the same amount. So we were looking at that. So yeah, I think the point I'm making with the example is that we quickly learned that we had created an app, but then also in creating the app, we did a few beta tests. And beta tests, we had a few people trying to use the app. And in that process, we quickly learned from so many people, because people are asking some very simple questions we've not thought about. Because when you work on something for a long time yourself, you think, oh no, this makes sense. Like, have you ever submitted your work to a supervisor and you're like, no, I've been working on this for like 6 months or 6 weeks. And then the person just looks at us like, this doesn't make any sense. And you're like, how is this person saying this doesn't make sense? Right? It's like that. So when I'm saying this, I'm just trying to awaken you to our own assumptions, to our own perspectives that are very biased a lot of the times to ourselves. And that's just because we're human. So I think allowing yourself to go out there and to interact with people, ask questions, allows you to mitigate that and to make sure that you've done your feasibility and viability. So it can be a long answer, but hopefully it answers your question. Just let me know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it made sense. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we got a question in the room. What?
Like, just,
Yeah, please.
why they said, testing around the business is the market research.
Yeah.
A thorough market research means you base your decision based on data driven. It's not just the assumption you made that it's going to work.
Yeah.
But you do the market research. Part of it will include the prototyping, to test if there's really demand for it or it's just in your head.
Yeah.
Then so you are going to analyze your competitors. And like you said, looking at the structure of the business, the barrier is it high? Because let's say the contract, there are some sectors that before you penetrate it, it's very difficult. It's very because of the political structure and the economic structure surrounding it. So that's that. Then I think there's also the mathematics behind that pocket analysis.
Yeah.
Cost, variable cost, I must even be so. You must be able to calculate for a period of 1, 2. Although over time you can change the strategy, but if profit doesn't seem to match up with all of your expenses, then it means the business may not be feasible. But you keep servicing bills.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. And when it's not feasible, viable, let's not waste our time and get into it. We look for something else. We look for, yeah, exactly. Any thoughts? Yeah.
Some people have made so much research on some other businesses, and I know one in my country who made a research and quite a number of people telling me that it's not gonna work. I tried it either way.
Yeah.
So sometimes I can say,
Yeah.
it's rule out and say it's not feasible. But somebody go out there, try it, even if it's not feasible. But after a few years later, then you start seeing the guy being successful in the same thing that you said it's not feasible. So when you talk about data and all stuff like that, it is created and it has been done by some other people and they've proven not that this thing is not working. If you apply it in some other or some other areas, you find that it's working out.
Yeah.
So what do you say to that person? You start a business that was not viable or feasible and you were successful.
I think it still boils down to what we learned yesterday. You as an individual, what's your risk tolerance level? Yeah, because and that's why the whole world is still towards data analytics, data science, and all of that, because we realize the need to engage in decisions based on data available. While we cannot 100% base our decisions based on data we get, but they also help us make informed decisions. Then secondly, there are other factors that are not reviewed 100% when you do your market research and all of that. So, but you know what you saw, and come on, there's a guts inside everybody that tells you that. Okay, even if all these things are not seen, it's comparable. Your guts inside of you is telling you something, but you don't just rely only on your guts because you're dealing with humans, and it consists of the environmental factors, the technological factors, and all the financial factors. So if you have the risk level to try it out, come on, you can. But according to research, 3 to 5 years, 5 years max already tells you the viability of the business. That if after 5 years it's not, change the strategy or is it?
Yeah, just carry on speaking. Whoever wants to speak can speak. Yeah. Anybody?
Okay, can I just add to simplify what they say, right? So I think it is related to number 4, the scheme party didn't get thought about. So for instance, now they're saying that you cannot work, you cannot generate profit. Then you say it does work. I think that's the point of saying that it can be put to another use. So for instance, let's use a real estate example. So now you build a hotel in Hatfield next to student camp, student accommodation. Then you realize, well, it's not making more profit. But then you change it and you say, let me make it a student accommodation. Then you realize it's giving you profit. So that's the way to go about it.
Yeah, just to add, there are several factors that can also impact visibility and viability. Because in business there are barriers of entry. I can't stand up and say I want to go and compete with SpaceX, for example, because the barrier of entry is very high. Then also for real estate, you also have to look at the resources that you can get. Of course, there are businesses that when they start up, there are no data to really show. Maybe they are pioneers. When Facebook started, everybody was excited about social media. You wanted to click, you wanted to do everything. So then they picked up, they didn't make money for a long time, but it succeeded. But right now, if you want to start a social network, as my friend, I'm not going to advise you to go ahead, because the barrier of entry also for social network has gone very high. On Facebook, you can make calls, you can sell, you can chat, you can do video conference. So do you really have that resources to build it? So for example, if you're a pioneer, like how Lennox wanted to start a gym that you just spend 20 minutes and pay and go, that's very novel. So if you start this, for example, people will say, no, we're not going to pay for it, but some people find their way of paying for it. But if you are starting something that the sector is already saturated, and from data, you are advised that you shouldn't go ahead. It is advised that you don't go ahead because you can get frustrated. There's something entrepreneurs also call tag pits. Once you get into it, because if you have the mindset of, I won't work based on data, you get stuck inside, and that is how the business will die. So data is very important. And also, if you are a pioneer, of course, who knows, you can just maybe open a new door. So yeah.
Interesting. Any thoughts online, perhaps? I hope you can hear the conversations taking place here. Okay, cool. We'll carry on. So I know we're running out of time, but it's important for us to do this. We're going to actually practically look at design thinking right now, all of us collectively, people online and also here in person. So we're all clear about what design thinking involves, right? The 5 steps, right? So let's test it on this garden. Who was at the Majakabedi garden recently? On Monday, yeah. There's a couple of people online and here as well. So just to put us all on the same page. So also an interesting thing as well is that one of the foundation's big values is like co-creation. And let's see if we can co-create something today quickly. So Majakabedi is basically a partnership where UP is working on a piece of land, and it's an amazing community-run urban garden used for education and as a wellness center as well here in Hatfield. So students basically have the opportunity to go out there and to do crop farming. There's also like a beekeeping initiative running there as well. So those are the 2 things that we observed on Monday when we went there. And basically we want to use the session now to apply design thinking to figure out how we can sort of like come up with solutions for students and for people in the community. So I'll just leave the slide on now. And then maybe we can break off into groups into like how many 2 groups. So half of the room and the other half of the room. Let's quickly think about we can just, I think you have it on your notes, right? What design thinking is, yeah, on your. You don't have it on the notes. You got, no, okay. All right, so I'll keep it on there. I'll send an email as well to everybody so I'll keep it on there. So let's empathize and let's define what the problem is. And then let's create something like, let's see how we can solve the problem through the garden. And yeah, let's come up with some ideas and prototypes, and then let's see if we can possibly test something. Yeah. Yes, good question. So for you to make money, it means that somebody else finds what you selling or offering valuable, right? Would you right now would a person who doesn't have a car buy fuel? No, because there's no point for them to buy fuel. But a person who has a car will buy fuel. So why, whilst it might not seem like you're solving a problem, you are solving a problem. Whilst you might not be solving a problem for one, you're possibly solving a problem for the other. So if you're making money, then you're definitely solving a problem somewhere. It might not be novel, but it might be making somebody's life a little bit easier, or it's something that somebody needs. Yeah.
What do you think about NPO as a business?
Non-profits are not businesses. Non-profits are driven on a social mission to uplift people or to solve their issues, but their revenues is typically from donations or from well wishes. So the NPOs that do very well are those that have a lot of funding from other parties, like businesses, the private sector, or the public sector, or individuals. I think political parties are non-profit organizations, right? Are they? Yeah, they would be considered non-profit. But they get a lot of money from private sector as donors, and they get a lot of money from members through membership fees. Yeah. If they don't get money from any of those, they won't exist, because how are they going to survive? And then I think just finally, your last point, you asked about the triple bottom line. So think about it as a 3 Ps. It's people, profits, and planet. So how does your business impact people? How does your business impact the environment? And how can your business make you money? Is it profitable? So that's just something to think about. Yeah. So to speak, yeah. Because we want to be, the whole idea around being environmentally friendly is that, like, can we think about the next generation still to come, that they can still enjoy the planet when we're gone. All right, cool. So we're gonna break off quickly. Maybe people can occupy the right side of the room, and then the left side of the room. Kampile, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. So 2 questions now. The first one
Yep.
is like, how does are you gonna create breakaway rooms for the people online, or?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. And then is that where we discuss the design thinking?
You're gonna move into a breakout room shortly. Please just I'll join the breakout room shortly just to explain to you what you're doing, and then if you're part of the bees or the crop project.
Sure. Okay.
And
But then, yeah, so just around the design thinking for the Mojanga Khapedi garden,
yeah,
like, as we can have ideas, right? But like, are they gonna be worth it when we don't know all of the factors that would go into us creating something profitable and of impact? Like, for instance, I had a few ideas, but I'm like, they could be hindered by what it would take. And like, for instance, I don't know what it takes to harvest
Good.
honey, or I also don't know if the plants are planted or looked after in an organic way.
Yeah, good that you're bringing these things up. Actually, the whole point of this is that most of the time you want to actually know much about the problem, so you diverge, so we're breaking away and we're having a discussion about the problem, and we're trying to understand the problem. And then, because I think the problem here is we're trying to solve the issue of hunger, right? We're trying to solve the issue of, like, we're trying to get people to get access to fresh vegetables, for example, from a gardening perspective. And then from honey, we're trying to get people to access honey and like the benefits that honey comes with. So if you don't know much about it, and if you have ideas, great, don't like limit yourself, just put them there and discuss them in your group, and let's see what ideas you come up with. So basically today with design thinking, I just want us to focus primarily, even if you go into your breakout rooms, just think about, define the problem, like have empathy, right? And then try and feel the emotions of what the people we're trying to help would feel. And then just start thinking about what the actual problem is. and then you'll realize that you don't know much about the problem. So you're gonna have to do a bit more research. But for now, just for the short time we have, let's see what ideas we come up with. So then we come up with these ideas. When we ideate, I want to see, we'll then give each group a chance to explain a list of their ideas, and then we'll see what we come up with. Is that cool? Is that cool online? Is that right? So let's give it 10 minutes. Is that fine? All right, cool. We'll give it 5 minutes to just come up with a list of possible emotions and stuff, like 3 minutes emotions, and then empathy, and then just come out defining the problem, and then just write a bunch of ideas. Maybe elect one person who will then present to all of us afterwards. Is that cool? Is it clear?
So splitting into groups.
2 groups, yeah.
Like the plant one and
Plant and honey one. Yeah. Is that cool? All right, I'm gonna create a breakout online, yeah. So yeah, we can carry on.
So now they are about 18, so you guys should break 9 each.
I'm gonna do it automatically, yeah.
No, I mean.
Oh, in here. Okay, sorry.
plants.
If you are not part of the project.
Plant. Wait, everyone here is plant. Wait, how many plants are here?
We are not using it here, we just making one.
No, we need to split actually into plant and animal.
Maybe we should say, we should say that in front of the.
Okay. But I just want to make sure that it's even. Like, yeah, okay, let's decide. Let's go there.
Oh, Bye.
Well, how come you get only 5? 5 or 6.
That's. That's.
No, they just randomly. Yeah, randomly. All random.
I'm like, it's not a good balance. It's not like more people and plants or something.
Okay, just I want to see if everybody's in.
No, it's fine.
Are you in a breakout room, Tony?
Yes, I just joined one.
Okay.
But the only Ephraim or Konya that's it. Okay, Ephraim.
There's 9 of us already.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then maybe about 3 people.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You guys there?
Okay, one must go.
Okay, you can go back, I'm so sure.
All of our friends have joined back from being online. Thanks, everybody. So, who's the group leader for the first group? Who? This group's gonna go first. Who's speaking? Gabriel, it's you. All right, thanks everyone. We're gonna listen to Gabriel, who's gonna speak now, share what their team came up with.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you. Just go.
Okay, cool stuff. So, we are in the group farming, the crop farming project. We're in that group, yeah, the crop farming project. And the problem that we stated, I'm going to list them, yeah. One of it being hunger, another one being expensive food, and the last one being climate change, right? That's what we could think of in 10 minutes. I'm sure there will be some other things that could actually be raised. And the ideas that we came up with is actually vertical farming, mixed farming, crop rotation, fertilization, self-seeding, and greenhouse. And that will be all from my group.
Nice, thank you.
Good stuff.
Maybe we can have the next group online. One of the groups. Maybe we can have the next crop farming group go.
Would that be us, the B people?
I don't know
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I think that would be us, ne? Okay, so you guys can hear me now? So we have decided on planting corn. This is because, okay, we did a quick research to just see in terms of maintenance, it's not something that it's too sensitive to plant, and it takes about 2 to 3 months for it to mature. And then the problems that we can encounter is that I think there's pretty much a lot of people that do sell corn, and so in terms of competitivity, we already saw that, okay, it's gonna be a competitive thing to sell, although we are only gonna sell it to local people. So we're just gonna sell it like to local people. We're not gonna try and go big and campaign it to like big companies. This is because we have limited space in the garden. Yeah, that's what we came up with.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you so much. For sharing your ideas. And yeah, I've noted that down here as well on the side. Perhaps we can have the next online group, the B's group. Please go ahead.
Right. Okay. So what we've come up with is that, in South Africa, the price of honey is high. For 500 grams of honey, the cost is approximately 125 rands to 300 rands, depending on where you're buying it from. This is just like the prices online for pure honey. And then also, there's not enough good quality honey. The affordable honey types that are out there, they have additives and also of low grade, and also just like for poor and low income people, this means that they've got limited access to it. Also, so that could be the market, local people, students, and some of the restaurants on campus. As we know that honey is a great alternative to sugar, and it has other health benefits. So in our pursuit of honey, a honey initiative, the problems that we may need to overcome is having to deal with honeybee pests, possibly, we also, as this group of students, have a limited knowledge and expertise regarding what it takes to take care of bees or harvest honey. And we don't know if we may need to factor in the cost of, buying chemicals as well as tools, to make sure that this is a success. And just based on the hives that are there, we don't know what quantity of honey we may be able to produce, like what is our capacity. So and also, like, if we were to sell honey and other honey products out there, like would we have to fund the initiative at its infancy? Like, those are questions that we might need to answer before going into the venture. And in terms of like what we could do with the product itself, is we could sell honey to campus restaurants, we could sell it to locals and the student community, and also on campus, there are a lot, or rather around campus, there are a lot of, markets, weekend markets. So that is also like a market we could tap into. And just beyond the honey itself, that could be produced or is being produced already, there's the possibility of using bee wax to produce bee wax products. So those are the things that we could tap into, having overcome the challenges or problems that we've identified. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was good. We're going to move over to the next group, which is in person here, the B group here. So you guys can go ahead.
Okay, so straight, we empathized and we discovered that number one, just like the previous group said, honey is expensive. Number two, we know that there's a demand for our health, for us going more organic and natural than to consume the chemicalized stuff and all of that. So there is a problem of limited production. So there's additives to the honey that makes it less natural, so that we can get more to sell. So that's the problem around the honey situation we're looking at. So we defined our problem. What's our problem? We want to create a structure where we'll have more beehives for more honey production. So, and looking at our Moja Garden, so we're looking at a way to partner with our Moja Garden where we can get a bit of more space so that we can have more beehives for better production. So this is because according to the market overview, South Africa exports honey both to EU, Africa, America, and Asia. So it means in terms of opportunity, there is an established market both internally and internationally. Then secondly, the weakness is around the area of infrastructure, no enough beehives for honey production. So because of this growing demand, we want to enter into this market. So we came up with an idea, which is we're going to collaborate with the Moja Garden, where we're going to get more space for honey production. Then I'm going to hand over to my colleague to continue with the prototype and the test. Thank you.
So in terms of more productivity of the honey, we looked at the infrastructure that is more climate friendly, which doesn't affect the land or doesn't actually cause more effect on the plants. So we're looking at building up an eco-bee nest, which is made from natural plant fibers with zero waste when it comes to pollution production. And in terms of testing the products, we're going to be looking at a market day on campus, whereby we're going to have an agreement with UP that we should open once in a while during high productivity monthly for the productivity of honey, that you're going to be coming, maybe let's say student center, and you're going to be selling it. And then from selling it, then that's when we'll be making more profit. And then from the profit, then we're going to be using on to generate more infrastructure for the bees and then collecting more honey.
Hot potato. That's the hot potato. Just don't drop it. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the groups online, and thanks to everybody here in the room. So how was that? Was it difficult?
A bit challenging.
A little bit challenging?
Eye-opening.
Good, eye-opening. Fun?
Lots of learning. At times, there are ways you can fertilize, and that fertilization can only adapt to certain plants, apparently. You can only plant certain products when you fertilize, according to what you guys mentioned. Oh, am I lying? But yeah. So, yeah, I was able to learn a couple of things.
Any other thoughts online, perhaps? Any thoughts? Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah. Good, okay. Sounds interesting. Before I go online, any thoughts here in the room? Final thoughts? Yeah.
Just a joke. It seems this funny guys that feel that there's one in the room, right? Well, I think that was cool. And you guys too, you did a good job. It was very smart, very short.
Yeah. Amazing. So we'll go to hear some thoughts online. Tony, you know. Sure. You can go ahead.
I think it was also a very humbling experience because, you know, we've been set out a goal to, like, you know, to try and create a profitable venture here, but like just discussing and talking through some of the problems we may need to overcome. It's like you realize how little you know about the venture you're going into yourself. So like you need to educate yourself prior to trying anything out, no matter how exciting your ideas may sound or seem.
Any other thoughts? Anybody online that's got some other additional thoughts? You can go ahead, please. We're about to wrap up, so yeah, you can share thoughts. Okay, cool. I'll take it that that's take it that's all there is. Yeah, I think that's so. I think it's important for me to just say this. I put you all on the spot because you didn't know that we're going to do that exercise. But imagine if we actually went out and we actually put time and effort into our thinking, you know, how much more creative are we going to get, right? So I'm very proud of all of you, or everybody online and everybody here in person for being here today. And obviously we're recording this, so we'll put this on, I'll share this a little bit later when it's on YouTube. So for other people who must to possibly tune in. But I think it's important to mention that we're actually going to build these businesses. So we're not just doing this for the fun of it. Like we're actually going to build these businesses. And our next training session is going to be on business planning and the business model canvas. We're going to be looking at how you're aware of the two groups, right? The bees and the crops group on WhatsApp. Have you guys already started the WhatsApp groups? Oh wow, you're on the WhatsApp? Not yet. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. I'll speak to the project leaders to find out if they can create those WhatsApp groups. Yeah. So they're both on the call anyway. So I'll ask them if they can please go ahead, create those WhatsApp groups. Let's get the ball rolling. I'm gonna send this stuff to you on email. What we're gonna do now, the next steps basically is I want you to then go ahead and the project leaders will guide you in terms of refining those ideas, right? So that by the time we come next week, we're gonna actually populate a business model canvas. And then the following week, we're gonna have a business plan. But then once we populate the business model canvas next week, we'll be able to start actually getting the soil preparation started. And then we'll also be able to start doing research on the beehives. And I think a final important point is that we want to do training for agriculture training for all of you. So we'll be doing recordings with a company that's going to help us to explain to all of us the soil types and what to do with when you want to start a garden and how to go about it, you know. And then similar to the beehive group, they're going to get an opportunity to get somebody to train them on how to go about. So you'll have the capacity to go out and do what you actually want to do. Any final questions before I close the meeting? Yeah.
Do you have to be on one?
Ideally, you can be in one, but you can attend the trainings for both if you want to, like for the trainings, because they're going to happen concurrently, but even if they happen on the same day, they'll be at different times. So you're more than welcome to join either the training on agriculture or the training on beekeeping. It's very interesting journey, actually. Any final thoughts online before we close the meeting? Yeah, so he's asking about the financial side. I'm going to train you on the financial side next week as well. So it falls under the business model canvas. And I'll show you I'll do like a crash course. So you just know what you really need to know in helping. Who's ever written a business plan before? A couple of you. Okay, cool.
The finances is
Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah. I'm here to help you with all of that. So next week, when you leave here next week, you will know how to do a business plan. It's very easy.
Different from the ones we're going to be presenting individual.
Yeah. So these are group projects, and then you can also do the individual projects as well. Yeah. This is just because I think it's more fun when you work together.
So
Yeah.
For 90,000.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Is that clear, everybody? Are you all happy today?
Yes.
All right. Thanks everybody who joined online. You will expect more of my emails later today, and we'll post this on YouTube, and then I'll send all the materials that we have today. And then you'll now liaise with your group leaders moving forward, who will create the WhatsApp groups, and then next week we'll connect for the business planning and business model canvas session. Thank you very much.